Hi, Tom Cofer with OnPoint Consulting. Today we're very excited to be sharing individual recorded learning sessions from our highly successful free OnPoint Sage 300 CRE web conference attended by Sage users all over the country. We had 10 great web sessions over a 2 day period that were extremely well attended, and just wanted to pass those on to you so that you, as part of OnPoint's continuing commitment and focus as our customer base and as a Sage 300 CRE user. Um, the session that I'm introducing today is Inquiry Designer Best Practices. And some of you may have used Inquiry Designer, but what we've discovered is a lot of folks use it on the surface but don't really understand the power of it. So today's session really helps you take Inquiry Designer to the next level in terms of a powerful, easy to use report creation tool with drill down. We were really able to deliver a webinar at this level of success because of our deep pool of very experienced senior Sage CRE 300 consultants, trainers, software developers, and custom report developers. In addition to our support team that's focused on support training and consulting, we also here at OnPoint provide our CRE customers with services we call optimization and business process reviews to help our customers determine if Sage can be enhanced or should be replaced. Can we add value? Can you continue using the tool, or is it time to consider making a change? So our optimization and business process reviews really help you determine that. We've helped hundreds of Sage 300 CRE users over our past 30-year history and are really here to help you gain the maximum use of your software and hopefully extend the life of your investment. We're here to help. And after the video, if you found it helpful, then please like or share us on Facebook and share us on Facebook or LinkedIn, and also find us at onpoint-software.com. Thank you, and we really appreciate your commitment to us over the years. Enjoy this session with our compliments, and stay well, friends.
Again, my name is Linda Whitener, and I'm a consultant with OnPoint, and glad to have y'all here. But we are going to go through the Inquiry Designer, and what we want to learn on this, we're going to look at the features and overview of the inquiries, the data structure, and the record relationships in them. Some of the inquiry features and options, some different views that you can get out of there. We will actually copy an inquiry and then and modify it, and then we're going to create a new one. And so some of the features, you can modify the inquiries that come with Sage. You should copy them to another name so you don't mess with the original one. And because especially if it's a multi-level, you don't want to mess up the jumps, we call them, down to the other screens. We can also print the data that's in the inquiry. It's a very nice little feature. We can export it to an Excel spreadsheet, and it exports very nicely, kind of similar to QuickBooks. We can create invoices with detail or summary information, and we can build drill down inquiries. So you start at one level by clicking enter, you're drilling down to the next level. So in the data structure, there's your live company folder, and within that folder, there's the data files like master.jcm, current.jct, which is a current transaction file for job cost. So those are the data files that are out there. And then in those files are tables, which are the records, like the actual job and such. And then in those tables are contained fields in there. And so when you're looking at all that, there is this thing called the data dictionary. And even like I tell people that are looking at learning to design reports, the same thing with inquiries, you need to know where the information is in order to be able to use it and pull it into the report, and also this one to be able to pull it into an inquiry. So we're going to look at where you can go to get this data dictionary. And so we're going to use the one there. It is on the knowledge base. Event 1, Quick Aim has a data dictionary out there, but we're going to do the one that's in the report designer. And it's in Report Designer Tools, then Available Fields, and that is the data dictionary. So some of the concepts in this structure is everything has a key field. It's the locator to the information that you want. So it kind of provides the address of the record. And then there's also a sort order. It's normal sort order, or it might even have a couple of sort orders to it. And then what are you wanting to access in that? So then, like I said, there's the standard orders. They could be one or a few of them. And then the primary key is each record has a primary key. And so it might be job and cost code, or at least the job. So depending on how deep you're going, what is the key that gets you to that information? On the record relationships, there can be one to many, which is one record linked to many records of another type. So it's like one vendor has all of its invoices, or one GL account has all of the transactions. One job has all of its cost codes. And most of the time, the inquiries are built on that scenario, that you start off on one place, you hit enter, and you drill down into that more detailed information. There's also a one-to-one, like an invoice to a vendor. So that invoice would not belong to also another vendor. It's very specific. Just that association is just one time. And then there's none, and that is check to an invoice. So some of the features within the inquiries, there's two different ways of looking at an inquiry, there's the classic view and then there's a toolbar view. It's just most time we use the toolbar view. That's what it comes with now, but there is a classic view. It just moves where those tools are. Then there's the table versus the form views, and we'll take a look at those two. Then we can put conditions on an inquiry to filter out the information that it's giving us. Because with those conditions, we can get it down to exactly what we want, and then we can print it. So you don't, if you're going to be printing it, you don't want to print a lot of items that you don't need. You can change the sort order. You can use the select feature, which is you can add or modify the column contents. So if I want to put the operator stamp on it, or I'm not using this particular column, so I can either change it or I can delete the column altogether. And also we can export to Excel. So the views, the table, it's a columnar layout, and that is the default view. It's most people, that's the way that they look at it. But the form view, it's more of a report layout. And an optional views is some other ones just by clicking on a drop down list, you can get some other views. So as far as designing one, we need to determine what our start level is. What is it that we want to see when we first go into this inquiry? And then what kind of conditions do we want on it? Are there any kind of sort orders in particular that we want? And then what view is it going to be? And then are there any other additional records that are going to be brought into there? And what kind of jumps are we making? So we're at the level that we come in at, and what kind of jump when we hit enter, what do we want to go down to and see next? And then some other inquiry options. What are we allowed to do with this inquiry? So of course we want to plan ahead and map out what you want before you even start, to have some kind of idea, you know, what are your column headings going to be? Where are you going to have to get that data at? Using the data dictionary to help you find the tables. And then define the drill downs you want. And then also consider the audience, who is going to be seeing this, and should they have access to certain information that's in there. And do you want the users to be able to change the inquiry when they're in there, if they decide to add a column or change a column? Do you want them to be able to save that? And when you're doing it, remember that the views can be shared between multiple ones. And so we want to be sure that we're changing one view on one inquiry, that we're not messing up the view of a different inquiry. And if so, then we would change the name of that view. So there's, more time that we're going to spend in the software. So that was just a relatively short slide presentation. So are there any questions so far?
No questions so far, Linda.
Okay, thank you. So let's go into the software here. Let me close up some of this stuff. So the first thing I wanted to show you was in Report Designer, under Tools and Available Fields. That's your data dictionary. So I'm gonna go, let's say we'll just pick the job master file. And I always click it to include information about ODBC reporting, just knowing if it's ODBC replaceable or not. So this is the job record. So we're in our data folder, and then this is the record of the job, and then these are all of the fields. So this is the field name that you usually see. This is its internal name, and then it just gives other type of information, what type of field it is, the length, and if it's ODBC replaceable or not, and if there's any special values to it. That stuff is mainly used on report designers, but this lets you know where the fields are. And it goes all the way through the entire job record. So you can print that out yourself, and let me go back into it. So you can imagine, if I selected all of them, that would be quite lengthy. So I'm sure you're just going to be printing the records that you're going to be working with, or that you think that you're going to be working with, and making sure that you know that you can get all of the fields that you're after. So that's the data dictionary. And oh, one thing I did forget to show you on that. Just go to the AP invoice file. So this is the AP invoice file, and down at the bottom here, the standard orders. So the first standard order is, of course, it's the vendor and then the invoice, and that's usually how we want to see it. But you can, another standard order is the batch that it was in, and then the vendor and the invoice, or the invoice entry, or a session. Two different ways: session, the run and the sequence, or the session, vendor, and invoice. So these are the sort orders, and in parentheses underneath it, that is the primary keys to get to that information. So like I said, most of the time it is vendor and then invoice. Okay. So if we look at an inquiry in general ledger, if we look at account, so that's our starting point. This is just asking you what file, transaction file, because it's only one at a time on an inquiry that you can bring up. I want the current file. So we're starting at the account level. And so then when we double click on account, then we're getting into the transaction level. So that is like a one-to-many scenario. And that's what most of the inquiries are built on, is that one-to-many. And so some of the features that you can do when you're in here is you can print. When we do this print, it's let me see, I believe this one is, this should be the whole thing. There's one of them that is only the rows and stuff that you can see. Yeah, this is the entire thing. So you could just print this information out, or if you wanted stuff only for, let's say, April. So I could put a condition on here that the accounting date is just like in Report Designer, greater than or equal to 40113, and add that accounting date is less than or equal to 043013. So now I've filtered that down. And so then if I wanted to print it, I'm only getting that information. So yes, that could have come from a current ledger, you know, only for April. But if I wanted to add or change some columns along here, like this is the batch, there's this little icon here, which is select, and it brings up the column options, or you can just simply click in the heading of one of these, and I can edit the contents of that column, insert a column before it, add a column after it, or just completely delete it. So if I wanted to see the operator stamp, now this, when it gets posted, it usually uses the operator stamp of the person that posted it, because that's the last one that touched it. And I don't have security turned on, so it doesn't show me anything, but this would show the person's operator stamp out there. So if it was on automatic posting from, you know, wherever it was coming from, accounts payable, payroll, then it would maintain that operator's stamp on here. But if it was sent to the new file and then somebody else posted it, then they would be the last one that touched it. So printing it, putting conditions on it. Now I'm on this line here. Well, let me do this one. So this right here is the form view. And so it gives some of the same information, but hardly anybody uses this. There is the batch. And if this was specific to a vendor and an invoice, this is in the cash account, so everything is more in a summary. But if we went down to another record, like if, now I'm gonna back up one. If I go down to, let's go to materials. Well, let's see. I was wanting to show you, it keeps the conditions on there. So we do here, and I'll take the conditions off. Because see, it maintains those conditions as long as you stay in this inquiry. So now, see, it has for May, June, and July activity. So here's this one. All I see is A1 electric, but if I went to look at the form view, I can see also the invoice number on it. But I don't have to print that from here because I could add, or let me just change this one to the invoice. There's the AP invoice. So now I have that information too. And then here are some of your different views. So entry information 1. So that operator stamp was added previously. And so now, since I went off of it and then came back onto it, because I hadn't saved that view yet. So just by clicking in the column brings up these column options. So this here now, this is the export to Excel. So if you click on that one, so now you have that in an Excel file, which you can sort it different ways, whatever you need to do with the information. But inquiries export very nicely to it. And so this right here is switching to the classic view because this is the toolbar view up here. It's kind of the newer way. It's been out for a long time, but I'll switch to the classic view. And so I'm going to say yes, but it says I have to restart this inquiry in order to to do it. So I'm in 10.5003. So I'm going to close out of it and bring it right back. 10.5003. So it's on here also. You don't have the toolbar up there. And also down here, you don't have the toolbar up there. It's down here at the bottom. So it's the words instead of the little icons. And to be able to switch back, you just click on toolbar and yes, and then you have to close and go back into it. And then it's back to this newer way. If you had attachments on the account here, you'd be able to see a little sheet of paper there, or let me get down 5003. On the transactions, if there was a certain attachment on a transaction, you would see it here. So you could click on that little paper clip. And if you had something in there, for those of you that haven't seen that, it looks like it has a little sheet of paper in it. On the other ones, it does not have it, but that one has an attachment to it. So you'd be able to see what it says. And then there's some file links if somebody added a file to that line. Export to Excel. So that's kind of just an overview of the inquiries. I'm sure a lot of you have been in and out of inquiries, but you might just take it at face value what it gave you. But using the conditions, the little funnel is your friend, and you can reduce that down to what you really wanted. So Lori, has there been any questions yet?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first question is, where would the report designer be if you had a version 5 years older than the one you are using?
Where would the report designer be? It was, even if we had, because I think the desktop was out then, but if they use RS, if I knew my alphabet, even if they used the old way and went in through TS main, if they went in through that way, it's the RD button. But not everybody has report designer. So they might not have purchased it, because that is a module that you have to buy. Report designer and inquiry designer you have to purchase.
And the other question is, what does ODBC stand for?
See, these are the ones where I wish that we we could have more of a live audience, but it's actually it stands for Other Database Connectivity. is what ODBC stands for.
And I just
so,
need to give you your 10-minute, you have 10 minutes left of the session.
oh my, okay. Yeah, so other database connectivity. So when we click that little box, the main thing that I do that for on the data dictionary is because sometimes when I bring stuff in, I want to know if that field that I'm accessing is ODBC replaceable. So can I bring something in through ODBC and change a field out there? So just doing inquiry designer and stuff is you know, you wouldn't be using that much there. But I know that this one class, since it is the last one, we can go over a little bit. I hate to do that to anybody, but I want to get to designing this. So in Inquiry Designer, you have inquiry, and when you pull them off of these down here, all you're doing is pulling the inquiry and looking at it just as you would in the software. You can't pull it up through here and then change it. You have to go in through the inquiry manager. So I think she's got GL account. So I'm going to pull an inquiry out of general ledger called account, and we're going to modify this one. So the first thing we want to do is copy it. And I'm just going to name it account, my initials. And if we had the different groupings in there, we would put it into the same group. So now I have a copy of it here, and just like in Report Designer, that's the first thing we want to do. To preserve the original one, we want to make a copy of it. So then to change it, we double click on it, and it has the starting level there, so we're not really after changing any of that. But we don't click OK. We click on Define Levels. And we want to bring up the current file. And so then this is the inquiry. And so let's go to that 10-50. Well, I want to go to this one. And kind of like the same thing that we did when we were looking at it. Let's add a column after that one. We could place it anywhere. We could place it before the debit column, whatever. That invoice number, there's the AP invoice. And even though we have the vendor here, maybe there's some that are very similar. I'm going to click in this column, and instead of adding after it, I'm going to insert before. Let's go ahead and get the vendor number. So if I have to give this to somebody, they know exactly what vendor number and what AP invoice it is, because this might have been coded to the wrong account and you want them to go back to the invoice and correct these. So That adds that on there. So now, whenever we back up on this, it's going to start asking me some questions. Well, yeah. So do you want to save changes to the table view entry information? Yes, I do, but these are the inquiries that have this view name. So I don't want to change those. So we'll kind of put my initials on it. I mean, you'd want to come up with some, a little bit better description than that, but that just separates it so it doesn't mess with these original ones. And now it asks me, do I want to change the default view to that? So yes, for this inquiry, I will. So that's saved. So now if we close out of it, save changes to this inquiry, yes. Okay, so now let's go look real quick in General Ledger, Inquiry. This one is the one that I just did. So there is our new inquiry. So the default view is this one, but it still has the other view, the original one. But this one is the default one for this. So something else on the designer, if I double click on that, the options here, allow multiple views per level. So that's that drop down box. You can change that. Allow modification of the current view. That's fine because people want to add something just for that time. But allow modified view to be saved. Generally, we definitely do not want to do that because as you can see, they can change that view might be in other ones. And so we don't want that to happen. You usually want to have them go to somebody if they want one that constantly has that. If you're all right with having it on the original one, then that's fine, but not to let just anybody save them. Allow viewing and editing of attachments that are on there. Allow changing of conditions at all levels. So those are some of the options of this particular inquiry. So since I'll go through it quickly. I want to do a new inquiry so you can see how we can start one from scratch. And let's see, she had payroll. So we're going to do a new one. And this, let me just, it's going down to check. And this is mine. So the level I want to start at is the employee. And so when I look at options here, so that's why when we start a new one, we don't want that. Okay, so that nobody can save it while they're using the inquiry. So then we define the levels. So this is the employee, and you can add, your layout that you had. You can add more columns to this. Add a column after this. So this is on the employee record. So the entire employee master file, you can put whatever you want on there. If you want the birth date, if you want the date of hire, so you can put whatever you want on at this level on the employee. So then, and also your sort order, this is by employee number. Maybe we want it by employee name. Okay. So, whoops, didn't mean to do that. So now we define, when we hit enter, what do we want to see? So we're going to define a jump. And let me see, what does she have here? A jump to the check pay record. Check pay. Okay, so when I double click on that, so this is it's in the current file. So here is the check pay record for these different period ending dates. And so it has units, but it doesn't have the pay. So now we have the pay out there. And then we can do another jump to the time record. For the time record. Okay, and then here is where we want to watch what this is doing here. So from this record that I'm on, when I hit enter, I want it to go to the time record. And if I, from here, if I hit escape or the backup button, I want it to go to the employee record. So this is we pay. So I don't want that to be the default view. I want to leave it as the employee as the default view. So on that particular one, this is the time record. It shows what job, but I don't really need run in sequence on there or even the check sequence. So I'm just going to delete those. And here I might add, we want cost code and let's put amount. Okay. So that 528 and the 4520. So now it's going, when I back up, yes, I want to save, and this is PR time. No. So 528 and 4520 was for that. Now here it changes down here. So here is all the transactions for the 511 one and the different jobs and the different cost codes that it was coded to. So, and here, like if I wanted to say, well, let's add the pay ID on there. So there's regular and vacation. If just by testing it, if I wanted to do just regular and then print preview it to see that my total equaled what was on the screen previous to that, I'd want to be sure to get rid of those conditions because when we put it out there, we don't want any conditions on it. But you could save this and then just go into regular mode and put conditions and double check things. But you can add whatever kind of columns you want on any of these. And but these define your jumps and your view options if you want it protected. And then you could, of course, take it out to Excel. That's just normal stuff there. So these three buttons right here are because we are in the design mode. So if I go to back up, yes, I'll save the changes to that. I don't need to change that. So now we're back to this. So if I close out of it, yes, we'll save that inquiry. So now if I went, that was in payroll. Inquiry, and I didn't put it in any of these, I just stuck it right there. So and whatever the file was that I pulled up, when I was designing it, that's by default what it comes up here. So if you pull it up and you do the new file, that's where it's going to have it be the next time you come into it. So it remembers that. So here it is. They're in alphabetical order. And if I double click on it, there's those. And if I want to go in the 316 to see we changed some stuff there. It didn't keep that PR time. Well, there it is. So I guess that should have been the default view for that one. And this one here also. So that was check pay. Yeah. So I was thinking the default view being at the very beginning, what you see, but yes, those should have been default views for that level that I was at. But other than that, I mean, it remembered everything. So that was the only thing I would go back into it now to change the default view to be that has an error on it right there. Okay, this I called it employee pay. So I would, that's why you get out of it and you go test it. So I would go back in and kind of pretend that I'm making a change to it. And then when you back up, it's trying to save that view. And so then you would say, yes, you want to change that view. And then you want to make that the default view for that level. And adding whatever you want at the employee level. So Lori, has there been any questions?
There are no more questions, Linda.
Okay. All righty. So in recap, we looked at the features and an overview, talked about the data structures in there and the record relationships, the inquiry features and options, the different views that you can have. We copied and modified an inquiry, and then we created a new one. Okay. So there is some security stuff. We just haven't had time to get into that one. But with that, I'll give it back to Barclay. Thank you all.
Linda, thank you so much for everything today, and we hope that everybody got some really good information that they can use. Again, thank you all for being here, and if you come up with additional questions that you didn't have a chance to ask during the session, you can contact us at clientcare@onpoint-software.com. Also, our website has additional materials. Our free Sage 300 CRE procedure guides are available to download, and additional webinars and videos. And again, watch for a survey in your email. So we really do want your feedback so we can continue to provide valuable information. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for coming.